Welcome to the Rimm-PODCAST, episode 64. I'm your host, Iggy, and today we have a really special guest, one and only, the law man, William Umansky.
Yeah, finally, after 2 years, I'm here.
Thank you so much for coming on our show.
Yeah.
I know you're running now as a coach. You have a dozen of an attorney in your office. You've been practicing for 30 years plus.
Don't age me, dude.
No, but
don't
it's a good
age me.
experience.
Yeah, you see how I backed up my chair when you age me? Yeah.
It's a good experience.
Yeah.
And you're actually teaching younger attorneys. We live in such an influential social media world. Everybody try to be an expert on Instagram, Facebook,
TikTok,
you name it.
Yeah.
And like you actually traveling throughout the United States and cities, from state level, local level, up to national level, producing and what it takes to be an entrepreneurship and what it takes to be a great attorney.
Yeah, there's a huge difference, right? There's a big difference between being a lawyer and an entrepreneur. And sometimes lawyers are the worst entrepreneurs. I mean, we all hear about great guys that are able to run businesses like John Morgan and stuff. He figured that out very, very early on. But still, I'd say 90% of lawyer class, because when you are raised in law school, you learn, you're conservative, your behavior is conservative, how you think becomes analytical, linear, logical. And, and entrepreneurship is probably the opposite of that. Risk-taking, thinking outside the box. You certainly want to have people that are around you that are analytical, but yeah, it's kind of hard to juxtapose both of those.
So I know you brought up the John Morgan to the point. But remember back in time when he built the business, advertising cost so much more comparing to today, where you really break the fraction of the cost on advertising.
Yeah.
Now today an attorney can become a whole lot of better, faster, popular than back in times. Now everybody have a $10,000 for a billboard.
Yeah.
So what is the biggest distinction between being an attorney back then and being an attorney now?
I mean, I think that really, that's a great question, Igor, because I think, that's got a lot of different layers to it, right? So if you ask that question as relates to the practice of law, that's one thing. I talk about that all day long, or marketing's another thing, or starting your business. But I'll tell you, if we talk about just marketing, you're right. So those, and it's funny, because I think now, if I was going to talk to a lawyer who's starting their business and doesn't have a lot of cash flow, like I started with a credit card, like a $2,000 limit, I think. But back in the day, when you had these advertising monsters just continue to get in the market, it was so expensive on TV and everything, you didn't have many options to get your message out. You could spend money on social media, digital media. The internet was just coming online. Get an organic search engine if you were lucky in the beginning to do that. And that was a lower entry into the market. But before that, it was TV and radio. And it was super expensive. And young guys, the only way they could do it was through grassroots marketing. And why that's interesting is it's going to come back full circle. Social media now has allowed a lot of lawyers in every discipline to be able to cut in to that market, especially if they're strategic with their marketing. Because TV is a big scope, and with social media and website stuff, you could target stuff, especially social. So it allows a young lawyer to pick and choose. However, social has become, even though it's much cheaper to get cases on social, the agencies who are running ads are actually becoming very, very expensive. So unless you're able to organically get stuff through TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, and you're using these ad services, it's now becoming almost like it was back in the day. And the ones who have the most amount of money can win. So I actually think that it's now taking full circle. You can, if you don't have the money, you can do social as a billboard, get your name out there, but you got to do the old stuff. The stuff you were talking about, you got to go out and hustle, meet people, make connections. Scalability is tough in that situation. And the only way you really can scale is through digital or big marketing, or TV advertising, radio, big internet presence, pay-per-click, local service ads, and everything.
You got to do multiple channels. There's one channel actually fits, one narrative. So let's say, since we're going to start from the coaching perspective, like you said, you didn't practice the law. You're just coaching a lot of attorneys, helping a lot of new attorneys who come on the markets, how to advertise themselves. Let's say there is an attorney wants to specifically deal with any DUI cases. And now he's going out there what is the certain things that he or she has to look? Because, you know, I'm a brand new attorney. I got maybe my second DUI. So many, you know, varieties could be stop, non-stop, you know, it depends. So how should I, you know, prosecutor on the other side has 30 years experience, I'm brand new. What is like the most important elements to become a most constructive attorney when it comes to represent DUI cases?
So that's a great question. So I'm very blessed in my office. I've got Rachel Maddie, who was the president of Central Florida Defense Lawyers Association. We just hired another great lawyer. It took me 5 years to find someone.
Oh, wow.
So the issue is, why did it take you 5 years? And that will answer your question as to what it takes for a young attorney to be great. First of all, I think still what separates all professionals and what they do is the ability to be prepared and to research and to have the humility to ask questions, and not just to the people that you work with, but go out in the market to do that. So as it specifically relates to DUI lawyers, and this is actually the advantage, I think, in the long term, in the long game. I've been around for a long time, and we've got a very, very large criminal firm. And I used to not be able to charge the money I was worth because I kept thinking I'm a marketer now. And then I look at all my lawyers who were as good, if not better than me, and realized they all have the same thing in concept. So I'm gonna tell you that most cases don't go to trial, but the most important thing, other than preparation, in my opinion, is the ability, and this is really true, is to be fearless. You have to be fearless of the judge, the prosecutor, and even of your client. You've got to be able to deal with them, their stress level, and make sure that they are taken care of. But you have to be the kind of person that's like, if you don't like the offer that the state's giving you, we're going to try this case. That is really, really important, and it sounds so like easy to say, but I'm telling you, like 70% of lawyers who are doing the work now, and even back in the day, they're scared. They don't have the experience. They don't have the state attorney experience, the public defender experience. They haven't been in the trenches. They haven't been yelled at by judges. Judges are so afraid of getting in trouble now. Man, you know how pain builds resilience, right? Mm-hmm. Well, back in the day, the judges were out of control. You get yelled at. My wife used to be a lawyer. She'd get yelled at just for coming to court, or picked on because her, you know, or leered at by a male judge because she's wearing a skirt too short or whatever. But the point is, those lessons, and by the way, she wasn't wearing a skirt too short. It was the judge's problem. But the reality is, those lessons hardened us. And I think people are softer today. So if someone's coming into the market, you know, obviously most people say start the state attorney's or a public defender's office. But if they can't get that job, then you've got to follow someone who's got experience. And what that may mean is you don't earn money. Hey, Stu Hyman is one of the best DUI lawyers. Can I help you? Can I carry your book base? Can I go sit on a trial with you? And then for a good lawyer to actually prepare a DUI case, to answer your specific question, they need to have a checklist. And it goes through everything. And it's even before the stop of the vehicle. But stop of the vehicle, why the police officer got you out of the vehicle, what were the things that the client was doing as he was retrieving those things, what are the alternative explanations for what he was doing or she was doing. You have to look at the video. A lot of lawyers, they dial it in. They don't look at the body cam video. There's roadside video, body cam video. They ask for it. They don't look at it because they're too busy. They're running to court. They look at it last minute. So preparation is key. And in fact, I know a lot of lawyers that if they really sit down with the client, find out what's happening with them, and then they follow that checklist. How do you get a checklist? If you're a lawyer that's trying to do a DUI case, go to the best in town, go to a seminar, put it together, and then it's like everything else. You have your checklist. The nice thing is court is the last battle and the last frontier, though, that separates the great lawyers from the average lawyers. So I can give advice all day long on how a lawyer can become a good DUI lawyer, but the reality, Igor, is, or any criminal lawyer is, and you've had guests on here that know this very, very well, it's how they act in court, how they're able to respond to questions, cross-examine witnesses and stuff. So, you know, I can tell a lawyer what to do, but there's a certain art form.
Do you believe that the enthusiasm of the lawyer plays a crucial role in influencing judge, influencing jury, influencing everybody?
So to me, passion is everything in life. Mm-hmm. You know, when I was young and used to party, you know, just be honest, supplements and illegal stuff when I was young, and drinking too much. But as you get older, if you're smart, you understand that the real ability, the real separator, the real deal maker, the real thing that makes the difference is what's in here. And it's not just passion, actually. You mentioned passion. I think it's actually purpose. Because with passion is something, Igor, that's like, honestly, you can wake up one day and be like, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go to trial.
I feel good.
Right. Yeah, but if your purpose is to help people, at least in that field or whatever field you're in.
So purpose and passion has to
Yep.
go hand in hand.
Hand in hand. Yeah.
I always love to ask, especially an attorney, there was a specific case why you've been building yourself and building your reputation, building your credibility. If there was a specific case that actually turned you 360 around, that particular case that said, oh my gosh, from now on, I'm going to be a different attorney, different person, different everything that I approach, touch, prepare.
I would love to come up with a story, and I've handled some really, really good, interesting cases. All I can tell you is when I was a prosecutor, I'm not going to tell you about a case, but this is a great thing for young lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a prosecutor, I tried over 100 cases.
Okay.
And my wife was a public defender at the time, and I was a complete asshole. We editing that out, asshole. But I was a complete jerk. So, and what happened is when I would win cases back in the day, and you are young enough because you talked about the penny saver, I would rip their head off the yellow pages.
Oh, wow.
And I'd attach it to my wall. And it was called my whatever wall it was. So I had a wall, like, the Indians back in the day would scalp you.
Yeah.
So it's a scalping wall. And the state attorney came in my office, Norm Wolfinger, one day, and I had like 60 names up on the wall. And I mean, the defense lawyers hated me. And I, honestly, the fact that I even took pride in that, I look back at that young guy and I'm like, what an idiot. But he said, you got to get that off your wall. You got to get it off your wall. Everyone knows in Brevard County you have this wall. You're going to get a bar complaint. You have to hold yourself to a higher standard. That didn't change the equation for me. I kept it on the wall. So I was promoted to division chief for domestic violence. I still have my wall. I was starting to try felony cases, but that didn't change me. And again, it was not a case. But what happened was that there was a defense attorney. His name is Phil Williams, and actually he was head of MBI here, which is an investigative agency. He was then the sheriff in Brevard County, but at the time he was a defense attorney. I said, Bill, I want to go play football with you in the parking lot. And he was like the only defense lawyer I kind of liked. So we played football. We'd throw the ball back and forth, Igor, with each other.
Oh, wow.
By the end of that conversation, I was a changed person.
Oh, wow.
I started thinking about the other person's perspective, because during that time of playing football, and he was a criminal defense attorney, he's like, he didn't tell me that I was an asshole. He made me realize I was a jerk. And we kept playing with that football, and afterwards I realized the next cases I handled, I still tried about 40 cases after that, but I finally became a gentleman.
Nice.
It says you don't have to be a jerk when you have power, and you don't have to be, when you have leverage, you just need to do your job.
And
The
that's
job's
usually
not
what-
about you, right?
Yeah.
It's about your purpose,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a purpose. The only thing I had was an ego back then.
And what's really killed the people once they have the power is the pride.
Yep.
Pride in yourself is killing it so much. So now, let's say I'm a fresh off the college. Now, the steps, federal level, state level, federal level is more complexity than state level, everything. So what is the best, fresh off the college and a lawyer, going for exam, bar exam, to pass the law, to license, whatever state he or she wants to license. So what is the best way to become a public defender to start with, and then get promoted prosecutor, and then get later on hired by a private company, or straight off the college go work for the private company?
So are you talking about for someone who wants to be either a personal injury lawyer or a criminal defense lawyer?
Either. Like what is the step by step that you want to be with the longevity of your firm, that you want to become a tougher? Because let's say you're just fresh off the college, you go work for a law firm, which I saw a lot of attorneys, they work for a law firm, and a law firm is totally inexperienced. So now they're going to the court. It seems like the public defenders become much better, and prosecutors become much better attorneys than actually somebody who goes straight off the college to the private practice, unless they find a John Morgan and a lot of top-notch law firms in the city.
Well, that's a complicated question again, because I don't think there's a black and white answer. I think when I was 37, I'd have that answer for you, which would be, you just need to get the reps. So just like being in the gym, staying fit, you got to get the reps. So the best way to get the reps, meaning motions, meaning arguments, trials, getting in front of judges and making like arguments and stuff, yeah, I mean, the state attorney and public defender's office would be the obvious choice. However, things change. So to be frank with you, whatever your political spectrum is, it really doesn't matter. But if you have, for instance, a more liberal agenda and you work at a public defender or state attorney's office and you have lawyers that are not hardcore trying to prosecute cases, there could be less trials. On the lower levels, oh, it's just a battery, it's just a misdemeanor, it's just a theft, we'll give you whatever you want. We'll do a diversion program, get the case dropped, which I believe you should have a diversion program for first offenders, maybe even second offenders. But so what used to be and what is now, or what county you're in, depends on the talent. So when I talk to young lawyers, I'm like, what is it that you really want to do? Because if you, at the time, right now we have a pretty conservative guy in power as a state attorney, but maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and this may not popular opinion, but the level of state attorneys and public defenders as a result of that, we're not getting the trial experience. So I always tell a young lawyer, like, if you want trial experience, go to an office that has trials. And that may mean moving away from mom and dad, away from Orlando, away from wherever you're from, and go somewhere else. Go to a conservative county, for example, in Florida, go to Polk County. Because down there, they're trying cases. Pinellas County, they're trying cases. And of course, they're trying cases here in Orange County, and now there's a new sheriff in town, and he's a lot harder, or he's a reasonable guy, but he's more fiscally, I mean, he's a prosecutor. Okay. So, but I also talk to a lot of partnership owners, commercial owners, who say that that's not always the best way to go, believe it or not. And also, if you're doing personal injury, sometimes working in a large firm right off the bat, that doesn't matter as much. You may be moving a lot of cases pre-suit, which means you're not in court. So if you want to be a trial lawyer, the idea is you got to work for a trial firm. So I tell a young lawyer, if that's what you want to do, then you got to find the firm that's trying cases that allows their younger lawyers to try cases. So I think like Morgan instituted a policy which was good. He wanted all his lawyers to try cases at some point, and I think those lawyers started to get more and more trial experience. So it just depends on the firm and what it is that you want to do, right? If you want to do wills and estates or business banking law, the worst place you could be at the state attorney's office.
Okay. So now the next question, I know back in your time you said you had to go there and try the cases. How about the new with media, social media, interchangeable? That actually a lot of judges after COVID-19 start to mitigate over the virtual, like Zoom calls. How much that affects an attorney, the seeing reality, seeing non-reality?
Oh, you know, it's so funny because I'm thinking about something. I want to answer your question. But I was struck how I'm hesitating because it's funny. That's an easy answer, but I almost feel like there's other components to that. So, yeah, to answer your question directly real quick, certainly seeing things virtual versus being in a courtroom is vastly different because you know, ChatGPT and all this stuff can supposedly equalize the distance. I use it every day. But if you're not there, you don't feel the context. And there's a human feeling that you miss off the camera, right? So it's different. And it's not like a production where you can control stuff. So it's different. And why I struggle with answering that question is I was thinking about how in some ways doing virtual court is great. It's more efficient, actually. Why drive 2 hours to do a conference where you can wait an hour and just say, hey, I need a continuance or let's set it for trial? However, there's some vestiges that are still there. So from the personal injury context, when you're representing a client, right, and you're trying to mediate their case, and that's the biggest day of their life. They've been injured, seriously hurt, and they want justice. They want something before you even get to trial. Can you imagine if the defendant is sitting on a TV, the mediator is sitting on the TV, and I swear there are actually plaintiff lawyers, the people that actually represent their clients are sometimes in a separate room or in a separate office while their client is sitting alone. It's ridiculous. And how can you expect the mediator will listen to your pitch? The defendant doesn't make the decisions, the adjuster and the insurance company. But in reality is there's absolutely no personal stuff, because when we mediate cases, and I don't mediate anymore, there's something called bad faith. which is if the insurance company doesn't pay, I could look at the defendant, let's say you're the defendant, and say, if your company doesn't pay, and we get a verdict that's in excess of your policy, I'm coming after you. And so then everyone gets upset. You can't do that over TV, because it's like social media, Twitter. It's easy to make fun of someone, but say it to my face, right?
Yeah. So with that, moving forward, how much will actually justice system moving forward will be changed in so many circumstances like that?
Yeah, I don't know if we're ever going to go back to as many in-person mediations, and there are now still courts doing trials, and you got to adapt. I mean, they have brought a lot of people back, trying cases. Jury selection is the most key thing, right? And I would tell anyone out there that's listening that if you hire a lawyer, if they don't know how to pick a jury, if they don't have emotional intelligence, if they don't have the ability to understand people, you've already lost. Doesn't matter how good they are on paper. You may need to hire two lawyers, one that's good with the paperwork and one that's good with trying cases. You can't try a case, in my opinion. There are people that are trying them, but it's just so hard to do that over TV. And so you're looking. So thankfully, they have brought back a lot of people into the court system. But I will tell you, it is more efficient now. The hearings that are not as important should be done virtually if they can.
So I understand technology change, justice change, everything's changed. Do you ever think we'll ever get to a point that even jury will be able to do virtual? Or they have to be required to be, everybody have to be in the court?
You mean trials?
Yeah,
they've had trials during COVID.
Juries, so they've been on the virtual?
They have in some jurisdictions. They've done that. Yeah.
Even on the criminal cases?
I have never seen it in Orange County, but
Okay.
yes, I've seen because the topics come up at seminars, and I'm just blown away by that. Yeah.
Wow. Do you think that's a good thing or bad?
No, I don't think it's good. I think you got to be in there I mean, personal injury lawyers have a lot more money, so they use computer systems and jury experts and everything. But for people trying cases that don't have access to that, and people that don't have money, that are hiring people just barely can afford their lawyer, that jury selection's got to be done in person, so I can see the tick, I can see the reaction that you have, because I'm only able to do it right one time, and on a TV screen I may not pick that up.
Okay, I got one more last question, then we'll go to the one. Okay, I finished a law school, because you are a coach. I want to ask you a question. I finished a law school. Now I'm a $100,000 in debt. I go there and I open my law firm. I have no money. I only think I have $150,000 in debt. Based on the ABA, they require that I cannot go there and market myself going from door to door like every other entrepreneurship. So how do you expecting me to become a lawyer with $200,000 in debt? I have to go there, I have to barely pay my salary. I have to go to promote myself. When I go to promote myself, it's unethical, right, based on the standards of the ABA. And then if I want to hire somebody, I don't have the money. So another point on top of that, like I have to call let's say I give you a referral. So client has to call me before I can call him. Do you really think that's a huge hardships on a lot of new attorneys that's stopping them from practicing?
I think it's actually
What was
easier.
the reason they actually implement that?
I think it's, well, you mean direct solicitation?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a great topic. So when you get old, you sometimes forget things because you're not in the trenches. So this will be great because this recording could actually be in a courtroom one day. So there's a reason. Let me tell you what the reason is, and let me be very careful. So, I don't think people really care about that DUI case that much. It's $4,500, $5,500, $6,500. We signed up a case recently that was a gas explosion case in Orange County.
Okay.
Maybe that case is worth $25 million. We signed that case up. We hired experts from Jacksonville to come down and examine the apartment complex. We hired an investigator, a guy to go out and take photos immediately. We were on the news. We stayed off the camera with reporters. I can't tell you exactly what happened, and I certainly don't want to say defamatory statements. I could just tell you what was relayed to me by family. their phone line was blown up. Now, it could have been that they called other lawyers. Of course, that happens. In fact, I know that that does happen. But I can tell you that when the case is large, there are people that will go out of their way to do whatever they can take to get the case. Now, we lost that case to a reputable firm, and I'm sure that they didn't do any of that. But there were other people already on the ground. There was allegedly an investigator from a firm that was there with no signed contract.
Wow.
And so the reason why they have these solicitation rules, frankly, and you know, there are lawyers that get around it all the time, but I do understand it because when it's larger sums at play, people are really in a frail state, and that's where it really matters. So I forgot all about that. It's funny, like I was thinking like you as a businessman, like, why do they have that?
Yeah.
Well, I just learned the lesson of why they have it after 30 years of practice. So imagine being out all that money. Of course, we're gonna get it back from the lawyer that has the case, but and that lawyer I don't think did anything wrong, but this guy, the client's phone was blowing up, and I can't say anything that's gonna violate attorney-client privilege, but there were a lot of people hunting that case.
Wow. So
Yeah.
everybody wants the big shark in the
Yeah,
house.
but I do want to answer your question. I think it's easier for a person to open up a firm nowadays.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I started with $2,000 limits on a credit card,
Okay.
no access to social media, and in debt, and had my wife's debt that I paid off for her. It was a lot of debt. It was about that debt because it was two of us that had to pay off. I think nowadays, just like back in the old days, obviously you can use social media. You can get out there, and if you have a presence, you don't even have to pay an agency. You can organically get cases. But you do it the old-fashioned way. You join an organization. Rotary is still a great organization. You join the Orange County Bar Association or your legal association. You get involved and you serve. You volunteer. You give back to your community, and cases come in.
And I also have one more question I will ask, because you are more coach. For example, ABA, that's a huge organization, a bunch of the lawyers paying the fee, just like everything else. But then based on my research, maybe I'm wrong or not, but there's not even one single government agency or entity that actually overseeing the ABA. And why is that?
So it's funny, you could talk about the American Bar Association, because that really is this association a lot of federal lawyers are involved in. And I was, I think, a member a long time ago, and I'm going to answer your question as it relates to like the Florida Bar.
Okay.
So the Florida Bar is an organization that disciplines its attorneys.
Okay.
Right. So
Who's ethical, non-ethical?
right. Those organizations, but you know what's funny is I respect the Florida Bar, but think about from the perspective of a small guy puts up a billboard. To your question about like soliciting or whatever. And the Florida Bar says, no, no good. If a large firm puts up a billboard and the Florida Bar says no good, what do you think happens with the large firm? Well, they'll hire a media firm, they'll threaten a lawsuit, and maybe the Florida Bar capitulates, or maybe the Florida Bar approves the ad. I don't know. But you see a lot of this advertising that's out there, it was not the creation of a small law firm. So to answer your question is, does anyone supervise the Florida Bar? There is a Supreme Court. I don't think it's directly supervisory. I don't want to say something foolish, but of course they have a say in certain things that are conducted. But no, there's really no authority over them, no.
I mean,
So that means if you're a lawyer, you better make sure you're good with the ABA, or especially in Florida,
because
good
like
with
I
the
said,
Florida
you know,
Bar.
a lot of them are finish up the college. This is the crucial questions to know, you know, getting
Sure.
yourself into the fees and stuff. Is there anything else you want to add up that we didn't wrap? And what is your upcoming things? What do you want to do moving forward? Like anything coming up, the new session or new coaching, new book?
Yeah, so you know, I did take a couple cases again, by the way.
Okay,
So we have like 9 or 10 lawyers right now, and I'm very happy with their work. And but sometimes you got to get back in it just to remember what it feels like. I feel like what's coming up on the horizon for me now, and I answer this, like, I get this question all the time. It's like, okay, why did you start practice in the beginning? And I think it was for ego, which was the wrong reason. So I became, just like in your business, when you're younger, you're like, I want to be the best. But man, that is really, really short-sighted. It's so short-sighted. So then the second thing became about money. So I wanted to make money. Okay, I'll make money. But really, when you hit your stride, it's when it's about love. So whether it's coaching other lawyers, it's about love and mentoring them. Whether it's running your firm and building lawyers from within, it's about love. Whether it's about starting other businesses, I want to do it with people I love. So I'm going to be getting involved with some people that used to work for me that moved on to open their own practices, and we're going to start looking at real estate, vertical real estate stuff, and stuff like that. So on the horizon for me is like giving back. I wasn't fiscally responsible, so I still need to make money, but what's on the horizon for me, I just finished a second book called Tiger Tactics.
I saw that.
But I just want to continue crafting our law firm, making it better. I feel like you can have great lawyers, but if you don't have good systems, you don't have good managers, if you're not leading the right way, if you're not getting your people to continue to be motivated. And so I want to get to a stage where I can teach people to be like, look, if you're an entrepreneur, you got to remember these people are not living their dream, they're living your dream. So with love and teaching these entrepreneurs to be able to figure out how the people in their business can live their dream under, because they are under, or their partners, whatever, but they live their dream. And so to figure out how to do that is probably my next thing that I want to be able to teach people and coach entrepreneurs on.
So give them flexibility.
Yep.
Thank you. I mean, this is episode 64. I'm your host, Iggy. This is really an entrepreneur, an attorney, a coach, a book author, co-author too, right? You wrote with another lady as well. So, I mean, if you have any questions, please reach out to him. He would be more than happy to come to your law firm, come to your seminars, teach you. He's a really well-educated guy, and I love having him. Thank you again for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome,
Igor.
Igor. Yeah,
so
I enjoyed that. Yes, some great questions.
Thank you. We'll do this again. And
all right.
I'm now throwing, next one's going to be throwing with the legislators. We're going to do virtual. I'd love to have you on there as well.
Oh, really? That's cool. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Happy
you.
Easter. Be safe. Be the light. We all love you. Click and share and like. Thank you.